It's 2:47 a.m. and you're wide awake, not because of noise, not because of a bad dream, but because your brain just reminded you, without asking permission, that your credit card payment is due in 3 days and you're not sure if you have enough. You grab your phone. The blue light burns your eyes. You hesitate before opening the app because part of you would rather not know, but you look anyway. The number stares back at you, cold, factual, slightly lower than you hoped. You scroll through recent transactions, coffee, groceries, that thing you ordered late one night that seemed important at the time, gas, subscriptions you forgot to cancel, a charge you don't even recognize. Nothing catastrophic, nothing reckless, just gone. Your salary hit the account 9 days ago, and somehow it already feels like you're scraping the bottom. You lock the phone, set it face down on the nightstand, stare at the ceiling, and you tell yourself the same thing you've been saying for months, maybe years. I just need to make more money. But here's what keeps you awake even after you close the app. Deep down, you know that's not the whole truth. Because you've gotten raises before. You've earned more. You've tried budgeting apps, savings challenges, financial podcasts. And yet here you are, again, at 2:47 a.m., trying to remember if you can afford to exist this month. The problem isn't that you're broke. The problem is that your money has a life of its own, and you're not in it. You earn it, you spend it, but you never actually see it. And until you change that, no raise will ever be enough. Because the issue isn't the amount, it's the attention. Here's something I think about constantly, something that keeps showing up in my research, my conversations, my own financial history. Why do smart, hardworking people stay stuck with money? Not people who are reckless, not people who don't care, people like you, people who watch videos like this, people who read books, people who genuinely want to improve. If you're someone who earns money, tries to get better, consumes self-improvement content, but still feels anxious, uncertain, or behind when it comes to your finances, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this resonates. Because what I'm about to show you isn't another budgeting system, it's not a side hustle blueprint or an investing shortcut, it's something simpler, and far more uncomfortable. Most people's financial lives are stuck because money only gets attention when there's a problem. Panic budgeting when the account is low, panic saving when an emergency hits, panic researching when you realize you're behind on retirement. That's not a system, that's survival mode, and survival mode doesn't build anything, it just keeps you alive until the next crisis. Now here's the part most people resist. You don't need more money to break this pattern. You need more attention, consistent, calm, boring attention, 30 minutes a day, not to become an expert, not to optimize every dollar, not to achieve financial perfection, just to show up, to look, to notice, to engage, because the moment you start paying attention to your money starts paying attention back, and that shift, that quiet, unglamorous shift, is where momentum begins. Let me challenge something you probably believe without questioning. I don't have time to manage my money properly. I get it, you're busy, life is chaotic, between work, family, obligations, just keeping your head above water. Who has time to become a financial guru? Here's the problem with that story, it's not true. According to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average adult spends over 3 hours a day on their phone, scrolling, watching, consuming, yet less than 10% of people spend even 10 minutes a day reviewing their finances. 3 hours of consumption, 10 minutes of attention. That gap, that's not a time problem, that's a priority problem. And I'm not saying that to judge you, I'm saying it because I lived it. I used to tell myself I was too busy to budget, too overwhelmed to track spending, too stressed to think about investing. But I could tell you everything that happened on 3 different TV shows. I could scroll Instagram for 40 minutes without blinking. I had time, I just didn't want to use it on something that felt uncomfortable. Because here's the truth nobody admits. Avoiding your money doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like relief. Looking at your accounts when things are tight hurts. So you don't look. You assume. You guess. You hope it works out. And sometimes it does. Until it doesn't. But here's what I realized when I finally stopped avoiding. 30 minutes a day didn't make me an expert. It made me aware. And awareness, consistent, daily awareness, changes everything. Because once you start seeing where your money actually goes, you stop being a passenger in your own financial life. You become the driver. And that shift doesn't require a degree in finance. It just requires showing up. Let me show you what 30 minutes a day actually looks like in real numbers. Not theory, not motivation, just math. Let's say you earn $2,000 a month after taxes. You're not rich. You're not poor. You're just managing. Now, you commit to spending 30 minutes every single day paying attention to your money. Not stressing about it, not obsessing, just noticing. In those 30 minutes, you start tracking where things actually go. And you find something interesting. Small leaks. $4 here for coffee you didn't really want. $8 there for lunch because you didn't plan ahead. $12 on a subscription you forgot existed. $6 on delivery delivery fees because ordering was easier than cooking. Nothing dramatic. Nothing you'd call wasteful. Just friction, convenience taxes, background noise. Let's say you find $5 a day in unnecessary spending. That's $150 a month. Most people would shrug at that number. It's just $150. But watch what happens over time. If you take that $150 and invest it at a modest 8% annual return, nothing fancy, just basic index fund math, here's what you get. After 1 year, $1,850. After 5 years, $11,000. After 10 years, $27,000. $27,000. From money you were already losing. From 30 minutes a day of just paying attention. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. That's assuming you only save the leaks. What about the raise you negotiate because you finally understand your worth? What about the debt you pay off faster because you see the interest clearly? What about the opportunities you notice because your brain isn't constantly stressed about money? The math is just the beginning. Because 30 minutes a day doesn't just save you money, it changes how your brain processes money. And that psychological shift, that's where the real compounding happens. But most people never get there, because they quit before the momentum kicks in. Here's what nobody tells you about building financial habits. The money part is actually the easy part. The hard part, the part that determines whether this sticks or becomes another abandoned attempt, is psychological. Your brain rewards progress, not perfection. Every time you spend those 30 minutes, even if you don't fix anything, even if you just look, your brain registers a win. I showed up. I paid attention. I'm in control. That feeling, that's momentum. And momentum is addictive, not in a toxic hustle culture way, in a quiet, sustainable way. Because here's what starts happening after a few weeks. You stop avoiding your banking app. You start noticing patterns you were blind to before. You catch subscriptions before they renew. You see opportunities to shift things around. You make one small decision that saves you $20, then another that saves you $50. Then you realize, wait, I'm not panicking anymore. That's the shift most people miss. They're waiting for the money to feel different. But what actually changes first is your identity. You stop thinking of yourself as bad with money. You start thinking of yourself as someone who pays attention. And once that identity shifts, the behavior becomes automatic. You don't need willpower to check your accounts anymore. You don't need motivation to track spending. You just do it, because it's who you are now. Psychologists call this identity-based behavior change, and it's the reason 30 minutes a day works when willpower, motivation, and trying harder all fail. You're not forcing yourself to care about money. You're becoming someone who does care, and that version of you makes completely different choices, not because they're disciplined, but because those choices finally make sense. And once that happens, there's no going back. But here's the problem most people run into. Here's where most people sabotage themselves without even realizing it. They start strong. Day 1, 30 minutes. They track everything. They feel motivated. They're doing it. Day 2, another 30 minutes. Still going. This feels manageable. Day 7, they've stuck with it for a whole week. They check their account, and nothing's really changed. The balance looks the same. Bills still feel heavy. The stress is still there. So they think, this isn't working, and they quit. But here's what they missed. Momentum doesn't show up in week 1. It shows up in week 6, week 10, month 3. Because financial change works like strength training. You don't go to the gym once and see muscle. You don't lift weights for a week and transform your body. But you are changing, at the cellular level, in ways you can't see yet. The problem is, we live in a world that rewards instant results. Instant likes, instant validation, instant gratification. So when 30 minutes a day doesn't produce instant wealth, people assume it's not working. But momentum isn't instant. It's cumulative. Every session builds on the last one. Every day you show up, you're reinforcing the neural pathway that says, I pay attention to my money. You're not just saving dollars. You're rewiring your brain. And that process takes time. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. Right before the moment when checking their account stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like control. Right before their financial decisions start making sense without effort. They quit in the messy middle, and they never find out what happens next. Then one day, something shifts. You don't notice it at first. You're sitting at your desk. Your phone buzzes. A notification. Your bill is due tomorrow. And instead of that familiar spike of anxiety, that quick mental calculation of do I have enough, you just know. You already checked. You already planned. You're covered. No drama. No stress. Just calm. That's the turning point. Not when your bank account suddenly explodes. Not when you hit some arbitrary savings goal. But when your relationship with money fundamentally changes. You start noticing things you were blind to before. That subscription you've been paying for 9 months without using it, cancelled. That impulse buy you almost made. You pause. You think. You decide it's not worth it. That coffee you used to grab every morning without thinking. You make it at home 3 days a week now, not because you have to, but because you want to. The math is working working in your favor now, but more importantly, your brain is working differently. You're not white-knuckling self-control. You're not forcing yourself to care. You just see things now, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. You notice patterns, trends, opportunities. You catch a billing error and save $40. You refinance something and save $80 a month. You negotiate a rate and save even more. Small wins, nothing Hollywood-worthy, but they stack, week after week, month after month, and suddenly you realize, you're not treading water anymore. You're moving forward, not fast, not dramatically, but consistently, and consistency, over time, is unstoppable. That's when it hits you. The 30 minutes were never about the money. They were about becoming the kind of person who doesn't ignore their life. And once you cross that threshold, everything changes. But here's what most people don't realize about momentum. So what does 30 minutes actually look like in practice? Because theory is nice, but let's get tactical. Here's a simple structure that works. First 10 minutes, review. Open your banking app. Look at the last 24 to 48 hours of transactions. Not to judge yourself, not to panic, just to see what went out, what came in, anything surprising. That's it, just awareness. Second 10 minutes, learn. Pick one financial concept and learn about it. Interest rates, tax brackets, how credit scores work, what an index fund actually is. Not a deep dive, just one thing. YouTube, Google, a book, whatever. You're not trying to become an expert. You're trying to become less confused. Third 10 minutes, optimize. Make one small improvement. Move $20 into savings. Cancel a subscription. Update a budget line. Schedule a payment. Call about a rate. One action. That's all. Nothing overwhelming. Nothing perfect. Just forward movement. That's the framework. 10 minutes of awareness. 10 minutes of learning. 10 minutes of action. And here's why it works. Review keeps you grounded in reality. Learning removes the fear of the unknown. Action proves to your brain that you're in control. You're not just consuming information. You're not just thinking about change. You're doing something. And your brain notices. Every single day, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Not the person you wish you were. Not the person Instagram says you should be. The person who shows up, who pays attention, who takes small steps. That version of you is being built in these 30-minute blocks. And once that version is fully formed, financial decisions stop being hard. They become automatic. But there's a trap here that catches almost everyone. Here's the dangerous part nobody talks about. Momentum works. And once it works, you get comfortable. You start feeling good about money for the first time in years. Your savings are growing. Your debt is shrinking. Your anxiety is fading. And that's when the risk creeps in. Lifestyle creep. You're doing better now, so you upgrade your apartment. You're earning more, so you finance a nicer car. You have some breathing room, so you add a few subscriptions. You've earned it, right? Except now your expenses have risen to match your income. And you're back where you started. Same stress, same tightness, same cycle, just with nicer stuff. Overconfidence. You've been paying attention for 3 months, 6 months, a year. You've got this figured out now, so you stop checking as often. You skip a few days, then a week, then 2, and slowly, without realizing it, you drift back into autopilot, back into assumptions instead of awareness. Complacency. The biggest killer of momentum isn't failure, it's success. Because once things feel stable, your brain says, great, we're safe now. We can stop paying attention. But financial stability isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's something you maintain, not something you achieve once and forget. So here's the uncomfortable truth. 30 minutes a day isn't a temporary fix. It's a permanent practice. Not because you're broken, but because money, like health, relationships, or anything else that matters, requires ongoing attention. The question isn't how do I build momentum? The question is, how do I make momentum permanent? And the answer to that changes everything. Here's how you make it permanent. You stop treating 30 minutes as a task, and you start treating it as a vote. Every day, you're voting for the person you're becoming. Are you voting for someone who pays attention, or someone who avoids, assumes, and hopes things work out? Are you voting for control, or chaos? Your money doesn't care about your intentions. It responds to your attention, and attention, repeated daily, becomes identity. Think back to that opening scene. You, 2:47 a.m., staring at your phone, feeling anxious, telling yourself you just need more money. Now imagine a different version. Same time, same phone, different feeling. You check your account, not out of panic, but out of habit. You already know what's there. You already plan for it. Bills, covered, savings, growing, future, clearer than it's ever been. You're not rich. You're not stress-free. Life still happens, but you're not drowning anymore. You're not guessing. You're steering. That's what 30 minutes a day creates. Not wealth, not luxury, not a perfect financial life, just momentum. And momentum, over time, becomes direction. And direction, over years, becomes transformation. You don't need to become a financial expert. You don't need to optimize every dollar. You don't need to be perfect. shift. You just need to show up 30 minutes every day, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. If this shifted how you think about money, if you're ready to stop avoiding and start steering, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, because what comes after momentum, that's where real freedom begins. And if you've made it this far, you're already closer than you think. The next 30 minutes start now. What are you going to do with them?